My name is Sarah, and for 10 years, my world was a perfect blend of science and art. I am a landscape architect and a botanist, a woman who finds beauty in the precise, elegant logic of the natural world. My masterpiece, my life's work, was Sterling Vines. From the outside, it was an idyllic, award-winning winery nestled in the rolling hills of wine country. It was a place of sun-drenched picnics, of sparkling glasses of rose, of laughter echoing across perfectly manicured lawns. But beneath that beautiful surface, it was a delicate, complex ecosystem that I had built from the ground up. When my grandmother passed away, she left me a significant inheritance. I could have bought a house or traveled the world. Instead, I invested all of it in a dream my husband, Mark, and I shared. We bought a large, unpromising piece of land and we built a winery. Mark, with his movie star smile and effortless charm, was the face of the operation. He was the storyteller, the man who could sell a bottle of wine by making you fall in love with the story of its creation. But I was the creator. I was the one who spent years amending the soil, who designed the award-winning, drought-resistant gardens that drew in tourists. And most importantly, I was the one who discovered the heart of our success, the Aurelian grape. It was a rare, almost forgotten varietal I found growing wild on a small corner of the property. It was temperamental, difficult to cultivate, and had a ridiculously low yield. But the wine it produced was liquid gold. It had a complex, floral note that critics raved about. It was what made Sterling Vines famous. It was what made us rich. We were a perfect team. Or so I told myself. He was the showman, and I was the scientist, the quiet, steady hand that nurtured our dream into a multi-million-dollar reality. I was happy to be in the background. I thought his success was my success. I was a fool. The dream shattered on a Tuesday afternoon. Mark was in the shower, and his laptop, which was synced to his phone, was lying open on our bed. I was tidying up when the screen lit up with a message notification. The name on it was Chloe Marketing. Chloe was our young, ambitious marketing manager. I assumed it was a work message. But then another one popped up. And another. My blood ran cold as I read the preview text on the screen. Chloe, did you transfer the final $50K to the lifestyle brand account? Mark, did it this morning. The nest egg is almost complete. Chloe, perfect. When are you finally telling her? I can't keep pretending to like her design ideas. Mark, soon. The lawyer says we just need to keep things quiet until after the harvest. Once we have this year's profits, we make our move. Chloe, and you're sure she gets nothing? All that inheritance she put in. Mark, the lawyer's handling it. It was a marital gift. She never signed a partnership agreement. She was the supportive wife, not a business partner. She'll be lucky to get the house. We'll be on a beach in Bali, and she'll be tending her stupid roses. I felt the air leave my lungs. I sank onto the edge of the bed, the world tilting, a high-pitched ringing in my ears. It wasn't just an affair. It was a conspiracy, a long-term, calculated plan to steal everything I had built, to erase my contribution, and to throw me away. With nothing. The man I loved, the partner I had trusted with my dreams and my inheritance, was a common thief, a snake I had been sharing my bed with. My first instinct was to scream, to storm into the bathroom and confront him, to smash the laptop against the wall. But a strange, icy calm washed over me. My grief, my rage, it all crystallized into a single, hard, clear thought. You will not be a victim. You will not cry. You will win. When Mark came out of the shower, wrapped in a towel, smiling his easy, charming smile, I smiled back. I was just thinking, I said, my voice a perfect imitation of my normal, happy self. We should have a special dinner to celebrate the upcoming harvest. It's going to be our best year yet. That's a great idea, honey, he said, kissing my forehead. The touch of his lips felt like a spider on my skin. He had no idea he was a dead man walking. In the days that followed, I played the part of the devoted, unsuspecting wife. But my mind was working, analyzing, strategizing. A direct confrontation was pointless. He would lie. A legal battle would be his word against mine, a messy, public affair. No, the revenge had to be elegant. It had to be silent, and it had to come from the very source of his success, the vineyard itself. You see, the Aurelian grape, our golden goose, had a fatal flaw, a secret that only I, with my botanical background, knew and understood. The grape was uniquely, exquisitely susceptible to a native root aphid, a tiny, almost invisible pest that could turn a thriving vineyard into a dead, brown wasteland in a single growing season. For years, I had been the only thing standing between our multi-million-dollar business and total biological collapse. I had developed a proprietary, all-organic pesticide, a complex blend of neem oil, specific beneficial bacteria, and other botanical compounds that kept the aphids at bay. But the pesticide was only part of the solution. The real secret was a complex, multi-stage soil treatment that had to be applied 3 times a year, timed perfectly with the aphid's life cycle to disrupt its ability to reproduce. This knowledge, this crucial, company-saving protocol, existed in only one place: my personal, handwritten gardening journals. They were filled with my dirt doodles, as Mark so lovingly called them. I remembered a time, years ago, when I had tried to explain the delicate science to him. He had patted my head, a gesture of pure condescension. "That's great, honey," he had said, his eyes glazed over. "You handle the bugs. I'll handle the business." He had no idea that handling the bugs was the business. His arrogance, his complete and utter disinterest in the foundation of his own empire, was about to become my greatest weapon. I secretly met with a divorce lawyer, a sharp, older woman named Helen. I showed her the text messages. I gave her my financial records, proving that my inheritance was the sole source of the company's seed capital. She confirmed that, without a formal partnership agreement, it would be a tough fight. "He will try to bleed you dry in legal fees, Sarah," she warned. "We need leverage. We need to hit him where it hurts before we even step into a courtroom." "Oh, don't worry," I said, a cold smile touching my lips. "I have a plan for that. The leverage is already growing." My silent revenge began on a cool evening in late spring. It was time for the first of the 3 crucial soil treatments of the year. I went to the main equipment shed, just as I always did. I mixed my proprietary blend of nutrients and beneficial nematodes into the sprayer tank. I calibrated the pressure. I walked out to the edge of the vineyard. The vines were beautiful, lush, and green, heavy with the promise of the coming harvest. This was my creation, my passion, my art, and he was going to take it from me and celebrate with his mistress. On a beach in Bali, I stood there for a long time, the setting sun casting long shadows across the rows of vines. I thought of his betrayal. I thought of her mocking words. I thought of my inheritance, my work, my love, all of it treated as a joke. Then, with a heart as heavy as stone but a resolve as hard as steel, I turned around. I walked back to the shed. I emptied the contents of the sprayer tank onto a barren patch of ground behind the building, and I put my equipment away. The cycle of protection was broken. I was no longer the guardian of the vineyard. I was simply letting nature, in all its brutal, unforgiving glory, take its course. For the next few weeks, I watched. I played the part of the happy wife, while secretly walking the vineyard rows every morning, observing. At first, there was nothing. But then, I saw it. A single, small, yellowish spot on the underside of a leaf on a vine in the far corner of the property. To anyone else, it was nothing. To me, it was the first sign of the coming plague. The first soldier in the silent, creeping army that was going to bring my husband's empire to its knees. The countdown to the harvest, and to his ruin, had just begun. The weeks that followed my silent declaration of war were a masterclass in self-control. I lived in the same house as my husband, shared the same bed, and listened to his enthusiastic lies about his day. I smiled, I nodded, I played the part of the supportive, oblivious wife, all while knowing that a silent, creeping death was spreading through the roots of our shared world. Each morning, I would take a walk through the vineyard, a habit he saw as my sentimental little routine. But I was not just enjoying the morning air. I was a general surveying my battlefield. At first, the signs were almost invisible. Things only I would notice. A slight lack of vigor in the new spring growth. A faint, almost imperceptible yellowing along the veins of the leaves in the lowest lying section of the vineyard. To Mark, and to our young, ambitious marketing manager, Chloe, the vineyard was a beautiful backdrop for their Instagram posts, a static symbol of their success. They saw what they wanted to see. I saw the truth. I saw the coming plague. Our vineyard manager, a wonderful, experienced man named Miguel who had been with us from the beginning, was the first to notice something was wrong. "Sarah," he said to me one afternoon, his brow furrowed with worry as he crumbled a clod of dry soil in his hand. "The soil feels wrong, lifeless, and the new growth is weak. I've never seen anything like it." I feigned a look of concerned surprise. "Do you think it's the lack of rain?" "No," he said, shaking his head. "This is something else, something deeper." "I'm going to mention it to Mark." He did. I was in the office when Miguel tried to explain his concerns to my husband. Mark was on the phone with a designer, arguing about the font for the website of his and Chloe's new lifestyle brand. He waved Miguel's concerns away with an impatient hand. "It's a dry spell, Miguel, that's all," he said, not even looking up. "Give the vines some extra water. Stop being such an alarmist. I'm trying to build an empire here. I don't have time to worry about a few yellow leaves." Miguel left the office, his shoulders slumped in defeat. He knew he had been dismissed. Mark, in his monumental arrogance, had just ignored the one man who might have been able to sound the alarm loud enough for others to hear. As summer wore on, the problem became undeniable. Entire sections of the vineyard, once a vibrant, uniform green, were now a sickly, mottled yellow. The growth of the precious our alien grapes was stunted. They were small, hard, and beginning to shrivel on the vine weeks before the harvest. The coming plague was no longer a secret whisper in the roots. It was a full-throated scream. Miguel, his face etched with a panic that mirrored the dying vines, confronted Mark again. This time with a sheaf of papers showing the disastrously low sugar level readings of the grapes. Mark, who was now under pressure from the bank for the loans he and Chloe had been taking out, did what all weak men do when faced with a problem they can't understand. He found someone to blame. "This is your fault," he roared at Miguel, right in the middle of the tasting room. "This is incompetence, negligence. I pay you to keep this vineyard healthy, and you've let it die." He fired Miguel on the spot, a public, humiliating execution of a loyal employee, designed to project an image of a strong CEO taking decisive action. In reality, he had just fired the only other doctor in the hospital, leaving the patient to die. The harvest arrived. It was not a celebration. It was a funeral. Our yield was less than 25% of our projections. The grapes we were able to harvest were bitter and underdeveloped, completely unsuitable for the premium, single varietal wine that was the foundation of our brand. The financial loss was not just significant, it was catastrophic. The entire year's revenue, the money Mark and Chloe were counting on to fund their escape and their new brand, was gone. It had been devoured by an army of tiny, silent insects that he had refused to believe existed. The days following the disastrous harvest were a blur of panicked phone calls and hushed, angry arguments between Mark and Chloe. Their dream was crumbling. The bank was calling about their over-leveraged loans. Distributors were canceling their orders for the next season. Their beautiful, idyllic world was collapsing, and it was all my doing. I had not lifted a finger. I had not said a word. I had simply stopped, and my inaction had been more destructive than any bomb. It was time to make my final move. While Mark was at his absolute weakest, his empire in ruins, his arrogance shattered, I struck. He was in his office, a place that now felt more like a tomb, staring at the disastrous financial reports. Chloe was there, and they were in the middle of a screaming match. "This was your fault," she was yelling. "You were supposed to be handling the business." "My fault," he roared back. "You're the one who kept pushing for more money for your stupid website." It was at that precise moment of mutual destruction that a process server, a calm, impassive man in a simple suit, walked in. He looked at Mark. "Mark Sterling?" he asked. Mark nodded dumbly. The man handed him a thick envelope. "You've been served." He opened it. It was a petition for divorce. From me. But it was so much more than that. My lawyer, Helen, had done her work beautifully. The petition included an emergency motion to freeze all personal and company assets pending a full financial review, and attached to the back of the petition, as exhibits, were the documents that sealed his fate. Printed copies of every single text message between him and Chloe, detailing their affair and their plan, and bank statements from the secret account, showing every single dollar they had siphoned from the business I had funded. The divorce mediation was not a negotiation. It was a surrender. Mark sat across the table from me, a broken man. His expensive suit seemed to hang off him. His charm was gone, replaced by a hollow, haunted look. His lawyer, a blustering, aggressive man, tried to argue that the business was bankrupt, that there were no assets to divide. "As you can see," he said with a smug air, "due to a catastrophic and unforeseen agricultural blight, Sterling Vines is effectively worthless. My client has lost everything. There is nothing for your client to take." My lawyer, Helen, just smiled. "We are not interested in the business, counselor," she said, her voice like silk. "Its current state is indeed tragic." She then slid a new set of documents across the table. "We are, however, extremely interested in this offshore account, the one registered to the MC Lifestyle Shell Corporation, which, over the past 18 months, has had over $1.2 million funneled into it from the Sterling Vines operating account. My client sees that not as a business asset, but as stolen personal property, as the funds were diverted from the returns on her initial, sole investment. Mark's lawyer stared at the bank statements, his smug expression melting into slack-jawed horror. He looked at his client, who could do nothing but stare at the table. He was a king with no kingdom, a thief caught red-handed. He had no choice. He agreed to all of my terms. The epilogue to my story is a quiet one. I took the full amount from the secret account as my settlement. It was less than my original inheritance, but it was more than enough. Mark was left with a dead vineyard, a mountain of debt, and a reputation that was utterly destroyed. He was forced to declare bankruptcy. I saw a notice a few months ago that the bank had finally sold the property. A large agricultural conglomerate bought it for pennies on the dollar. I am sitting now on the porch of a small, beautiful property I bought a few towns over. It is not a grand estate. It is just a piece of land with good soil and a beautiful view of the sunrise. I have started my own business, a small, independent consulting firm for landscape architecture and sustainable botanical design. My work is respected. My life is quiet, and it is entirely my own. This morning, I got a news alert on my phone, an article about regional farming. It mentioned that the former Sterling Vines property had been completely razed. All the dead, our alien, grapevines had been torn out and burned to make way for a massive, generic crop of soybeans. His empire, the one he tried to steal, is now nothing but a flat, empty field. He tried to take my life's work, and in the end, he has nothing to show for his own. He was a parasite who killed his host, and now he has simply withered away. And I, the quiet gardener, have finally been replanted in a place where I can grow.